Welcome to How to Use Sony Vegas. I am Steph, the video guy. What we'll deal with in this video is how to create a new project and selecting the best project settings. Okay, so what I'll do is hit File, New, and this will open up a new window. As you can see, there's lots of stuff on here. I'm going to go through it quickly. Alright, so the video section is going to adjust all the settings for our video. The audio settings for the audio, basically setting the types of rulers down in our timeline. The summary we can include in that file, as well as information for audio CD. Going through video, we've got a template, and basing your thing off of template is the best way to go. We've got multimedia, internet, NTSC, PAL, HDV, HD, 2K, 4K. Now, I'm just going to quickly go through this. Internet, of course, is self-explanatory. NTSC is the old standard. 720 by 480 was, the square televisions back in the day. And then it went over to widescreen, and you can select 24p widescreen or 29.97 widescreen. Now, 29.97 is standard video frame rate. So you want to use this frame rate if you're going to be using it on television, say if it's a TV commercial, or if you really want to be able to edit it later. There's a 24p, which is actually not 24 exact frames. Similar to this, some people will call this 30p, but it's not. It's 29.97. This 24p is 23.976. It's just a little slower than 24 frames per second. Now, I don't tend to use 24p. 24p is the frame rate for film, and so some people like to use it because it gives a similar look to film. But myself, I like to have more frames in there, more information, so that way if I want to go in and edit it again later on after I've rendered it, that's what I like to do. The reason I spent so much time on this is because even working in HD, 29.97 is the most common frame rate, and probably what you'll want to choose. Let's see. We'll go down. PAL, of course, is the European standard. So if you're looking in from Europe, it'll be 25 frames per second is your standard, and a bunch of different sizes here that you might want to look at. It all depends on what your footage is, really. That's your footage and where you're delivering this to. Even if you're delivering it to YouTube, you probably want to select one of these, either HDV, which is can either be 720 30p, which is 720 frames tall, so 1280 by 720, or HDV, which is 60i, which is the Sony proprietary. Now, I use Sony proprietary because I have Sony cameras. So this is usually what I set it to right here. That means that basically it says it's 1440 by 1080, but it stretches it out, and I'll get to that later. You can also do 720 60p if you're using, say, a digital SLR. Will give you this this frame rate. Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and select that. Then we'll look. We've got a width of 1440. Now, almost everyone knows that HD is not 1440. It is 1920, as you'll see right here. Now, because Sony does HDV a little bit differently, it's got a different pixel aspect ratio. Now, that might seem a little confusing, but aspect ratios have been being used for the last 15-20 years. It's basically they squish the pixel, and when you squish it back out through the codec, it looks the same. So And the field order, leave it where it is. HDV has the upper field first. Now DV has lower field first, but if you're dealing with this type of footage, leave it there. So, and also if you're dealing with progressive footage, say if, like I said, if you're dealing with something from a digital SLR, you're not going to be dealing with interlaced footage, so select progressive. I have interlaced footage, so that's the way it goes. Output rotation, if you're using iPhone footage that might have been sideways, you can spin it immediately right away here. Yeah, our frame rate, like I said, 2997 is the most common. Double NTSC if you're using some digital SLR high frame rate footage, that will give you a nice slow-mo. All right, so pixel format, you've got different options. Unless you're dealing with big TIFFs, I would leave it at 8-bit. Composting gamma is fine. Transform, leave it on good for your rendering quality. I haven't actually noticed the difference between good and best. Of course, you can always change this on the fly, so you leave it at good and then change it later if you want to. Gaussian motion blur is fine. There's a bunch of different types of motion blur, but I would just leave it at Gaussian. Deinterlace method. Now, since I'm using interlaced footage, I can choose to deinterlace it on the fly with this, but yeah, let's choose blend fields. I've done a couple of different tests with kind of what I call crunchy footage or blocky footage. It's where you see the stepping in the interlacing. Blend fields is good. You can leave it at none if you're going to be putting it onto DVD, because DVD itself is interlaced. You can go blend fields. You could adjust source media to better match. So that means that when you put footage in, it'll automatically adjust itself to match. Here's your pre-rendered files. Now, pre-rendered files are just files that occur as proxies when you drop new files in. You could start all new projects with these settings, but that's a handy one if you're constantly dealing with the same footage. Audio, leave it in. You can do stereo or surround. See, if I do surround, it'll put some different controls down on the audio layer, but I'm not going to do that right now. I would just, everything that pops up here is all going to be standardized, unless you're dealing with 5.1. And perhaps I'll do a video later on about 5.1 and how that works. Yeah, just leave everything as is. Recorded files folder, you know, unless you're going to be doing a lot of recording, you shouldn't have to really worry about that. All right, ruler, time and frames is good. You know, you could set it to seconds, time. I like time and frames because it allows you to see the 30 frames per second that you're clicking through, as well as how long things are. It'll also show you when you've got a overlap, how long that overlap is. Summary, you could put your name and all the copyright stuff. And I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, this is what I would use for my footage because I've got that the Sony cameras. But if you're dealing with the digital SLR, what I've done before is done 720 30p. Now, the reason I say 720 30p is because a lot of players, especially older players, handle it quite a bit better than the 1080p. So if I went to 1080, also 1080 30 is not very common. You see that there's an option right here for 1080 30. Even though 1080 30 is what all digital SLRs shoot in. So yeah, it's just one of those things about Sony. They include certain things and exclude others. So usually I'll select that. And there we go. And so because this footage, for instance, this footage that I took in a helicopter, you can see it's pretty choppy. I shot this footage in a helicopter, and it was yeah, you know, I got some usable footage out of it, but basically this is progressive because it was shot in a GoPro. So yeah, if I right click, I'll look at the properties of this. It shows all sorts of stuff. When I look at the media, it'll say, oh yeah, it's progressive scan. So, and it, of course, I shoot all of my digital SLR stuff at 59.94. So it's double. So that means that I could actually, so I will look at this, you see the shakiness, and yeah, kind of crappy footage actually. And then I go to props, and then I, oh, there we go. Let's go to the playback rate of 0.5. And then we'll get a slow-mo out of it. But that's the reason why you want to select, you know, the particular types of file types when you're setting this up, because you want to make sure that you're matching what your output is. And that's one last important thing for me to say, is that I would be matching what the frame rate is for YouTube. So YouTube will output to this frame rate. So this is exactly what I would do. But there we go. I hope that helped you a little bit. If you have any questions, leave them in the bottom, and please subscribe, and yeah, share my videos, because I'm looking forward to sharing some of what I know about Vegas, and hopefully I can help. Thanks a lot.